Welcome to this practice tutorial on writing a CER. This is for letter A, Practice CER Solids with a checklist. And what you're going to be doing today is you're going to be practicing writing a CER. So far in class this year, we've practiced some and you've been graded on some. So what you're going to do today is you're going to look at some data, you're going to write a claim, you're going to find relevant evidence that supports your claim, and then you're going to back it up with a very strong reasoning. Now, I'm going to start by telling you this. When you turn your activity in at the end of the hour, everything should be done completely. So if your teacher takes a look at it, or if I take a look at it, and it's not done correctly, the only explanation can be is that you did not watch this video in its entirety. So I want to make sure I let you know that you need to go through the video step by step by step. Don't skip parts and think, okay, I don't need to watch the video. I know what's going on, because if you miss some things, I'm going to question you on it. I'm going to ask you, what happened with this? Why didn't you do this part? Or why did you do it this way when a video asked you to do it a certain way? So we'll just keep that in mind and make sure you listen to everything, because I know some of you like to skip certain parts of the video. All right, now, so here you see a data table, and it's got 4 different solids, and it labels the mass, whether it's soluble in water, melting point, and color. So what you need to do is you need to write a scientific explanation that answers the question, are any of the solids the same substance? So you've had questions similar to this before, but never with solids and never with some of these categories that you have here. Now, the very first thing you're going to want to do in order to figure out if any of them are the same is you need to read the scientific principles. The scientific principles actually help you figure out what categories, whether it's mass, soluble in water, melting point, color, which ones are applicable, which ones are not. So when you look at the bottom of your first page, it says write your answers on the CER assessment page. So you're going to put your claim, your evidence, your reasoning on a different sheet of paper. But what we did put right here are the scientific principles. So what I want you to do is read through the 6 scientific principles. Find key words such as mass, soluble in water, melting point, color. When you find those key words, decide if they're relevant or not, and put a check mark by all the ones that are relevant. Now remember, sometimes if you read it and says that a certain category is not or cannot be used to identify a substance, that's also relevant, because that could eliminate some as well. So go ahead, pause the video, read through these, and mark the ones that you think apply. All right, now that you've gone through the 6 scientific principles, what I'd like you to do is go back up to this chart and start looking at solid 1. Look at the mass, whether it's soluble in water, the melting point, and color. Then look at solids 2, 3, and 4. And based on the scientific principles, go ahead and figure out which ones are the same, if any. Are they all the same? Are just 2 of them the same? Maybe 3 of them are the same, maybe none of them are the same. So go ahead, pause the video, and look through your data. Okay, so now that you think you have the ones that are the same, and again, feel free on this page to cross stuff off if it's not relevant or if you don't need to know that information. So now what we're going to do is we're going to scroll ahead, and remember, as you're writing your claim, go back to the CER Basics page and make sure you understand everything that goes into a claim. So if I roll ahead now, actually I got to go back up to the top. Here we are. So right now I'm on page 3. So go ahead, write your claim. Now if you want to tear your sheets apart, just staple them back in the correct order. You can do that. So what is your claim? Go ahead, pause the video, and write a claim. All right, now that you've had a chance to write your claim, what I want you to do is go through this checklist, and we would expect these to be checked off. So number 1 here says, I reviewed the CER Basics handout to review what makes a proper claim. So just like I got done saying, did you go through the basics? Do you have everything? Then my claim is based on my evidence and supported by scientific principles. So if you just wrote your claim and you didn't look at the scientific principles, you can't check this off. Have you looked at the scientific principles and based your claim on that? And then the third one, my claim is a complete sentence. Read it over. Does it make sense? Does it answer the question, are any of the solids the same substance? So don't have an answer like, yes, they are. Yes, they are what? And then go through. Is your claim, do you use scientific vocabulary in it? Did you say my claim is? And do you have a complete sentence? How is your spelling in this? You're going to see this later on, but how's your spelling? Does everything make sense? How's your capitalization? All right, so now that you're done with claim, you're going to write your evidence. So go ahead, pause the video, and write up your evidence section. Just to let you know, there is more room on the next page if you need more room for your evidence. So go ahead and, based on what you had for a claim, what evidence is relevant? So go ahead, pause the video, and complete your evidence section. All right, now that you've completed your evidence section, again, let's go through this checklist. I reviewed the CER Basics handout. So did you go through that handout again and you have everything that's proper in there? For example here, my evidence connects to the claim. So did your evidence support your claim? When I look at the next one, my evidence is accurate and relevant to the claim. Is it accurate? Again, does it relate back to the claim? Is it relevant? Now my evidence is sufficient to support the claim. So did you talk about mass in your evidence? Did you talk about the solubility in your evidence? Did you talk about the melting point in your evidence? Did you talk about the color of the solids in your evidence? You should have talked about all of those, because each one of those will either support your claim, or in some cases, if it's not relevant, it'll also support your claim by telling you which numbers don't matter. Then, do you have both qualitative and quantitative evidence? And what I mean by that is, if you go back up here, did you just say, oh, the mass of solids 1 and solids 4, or did you say, for example, solid 1 and solid 4 have the same mass? Or that's just qualitative. But if you say solids 1 and solids 4 both have the same mass of 65 grams, there's both qualitative and quantitative. So make sure you mention all these numbers in there, degrees Celsius and the different colors. So don't just say, oh, they have different colors or they have the same colors. What is the same color? What are the colors? What are the melting points? What are the masses? So that's what we mean by having both qualitative and quantitative evidence. So if you've done all this, then you should have a pretty good evidence. So now let's go to the last part. This is the reasoning. So what I would do is I would go back up to the CER Basics, read over the reasoning section. Then go ahead, pause the video, and write your reasoning. All right, so now that you've had a chance to do your reasoning, let's go through the checklist. Did you review the CER Basics handout? You should have. I asked you to before you started the reasoning. My reasoning is a good sized paragraph. This is where some of you will come with a sentence or two and say, oh, this is my reasoning. It's not nearly enough for all the evidence you're going to be talking about here. Did you restate your claim in your reasoning section? Did you use and restate scientific principles? So remember back when you had to check off the ones you were going to use. Did you mention each one of those in your reasoning by both number and the principle? So don't just state the principle and expect your teacher to dig through everything to figure out which ones you're talking about. Say things like, according to scientific principle number 1, and then restate it, or according to scientific principle number 2, or scientific principle number 3 states that. So use vocabulary like that to call out these scientific principles. And then tell me why these scientific principles support or take your evidence and it links it back to the claim. So I link evidence to the scientific principles and my reasoning section. So I'll have to fix this spelling here because it says and my reasoning section. So I'll fix that before I hand this out again next time. So did you do all that? And again, here's the biggie. You have to use scientific principles. It seems like every time we state that at the beginning of each hour, then there's a handful of students at the end of the hour that have no scientific principles. Now, don't forget, did you check over the posters in the back? Now, you shouldn't have to do them with this one because you have the handout that goes through all the CER basics. And again, it says in the posters and it says in the CER basics, you must have scientific principles. Now, they need to be the correct ones, but make sure you have some. Again, some of you turn them in each and every time and you have no scientific principles, despite the fact that we say you have to, the posters say you have to, and now the CER basics handout say you have to, and this video says you have to. So make sure you have it. Now, go through your CER once more. Check for mechanics. How's the capitalization? How's your spelling? How's your punctuation? Do you have complete sentences, complete thoughts? Because there's sometimes when I'll read through your CERs, I don't have a clue what you're trying to say because it doesn't make sense because you never went back and you double checked it. So go ahead and double check for mechanics. You can pause the video while you do that. All right, so now you've checked for mechanics. The last thing I want you to do in class is you're going to edit your CER. So when I look at this here is the rubric, as much of it I can fit into the screen as possible. So what I want you to do, and if you notice, there's two rubrics. There's a front one and there's a back one. The first one is for you, so go ahead, put your name here. And what I want you to do is I want you to go through, here's a rubric scaled 1 through 4. This is nothing new. You've seen this before. What I want you to do is I want you to rate yourself a 1, 2, 3, or 4 for claim, evidence, and reasoning. So don't just put check marks. Read through each one. Where do you fit? Now, once you get done with this, find a neighbor. Hand them your CER, and I want them on the back page to put their name here. And I want them to read through your CER, and I want them to peer edit your CER. So you did a self-edit, then you're going to do a peer edit, and then you're going to get these turned in prior to you leaving the class. Now what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to go through these as a class. So you're going to peer edit someone's, you're going to self-edit yours, and then I'm going to give you feedback as well in class to let you know how you're doing. So go ahead, pause the video. In fact, you can stop the video. This is the end of the video, and complete the editing process. Then make sure these get turned in prior to the end of the hour. And as always, make sure you ask your teacher if you have any questions with any of these. Thanks. Bye.